I need to create a detailed outline for a story based on the title and thumbnail text given, and then write a complete 10,000 word story from that outline. Let me develop a comprehensive outline first. Alexandra, 32 tuổi tu giới thiệu. Flash forward. Khoảnh khắc bước vào nhà hàng sang trọng, nhìn thấy gia đình sau nhiều năm xa cách. Cảm giác hồi hộp tự tin hơn nhiều so với lần cuối gặp họ. Ánh mắt ngạc nhiên sửng sốt của cha mẹ và anh trai khi thấy cô nhắc đến biệt danh, kế thừa cuộc trong gia đình, kết thúc với lời kêu gọi hành động. Trước khi tôi kể về hành trình từ kế thừa cuộc đến người phụ nữ đứng trước họ ngày hôm nay, hãy cho tôi biết bạn đang xem từ đâu và nhận subscribe nếu bạn cũng từng bị coi thường bởi chính người thân của mình. 1. Giới thiệu về gia đình Wilson, gia đình trung lưu nổi tiếng trong cộng đồng nhỏ ở Boston. Cha, William Wilson, giáo sư đại học nổi tiếng nghiêm khắc và đòi hỏi cao. Mẹ, Elizabeth Wilson, bác sĩ thành đạt hoàn hảo trong mắt mọi người. Anh trai, Michael Wilson, sinh viên xuất sắc vận động viên con cưng của gia đình. Alexandra, đứa con gái, không đúng như mong đợi. 2. Sự khác biệt của Alexandra, mơ mộng nghệ thuật không thích cạnh tranh, khó khăn trong học tập truyền thống có thể mặc chứng khó đọc dyslexia nhưng không được chẩn đoán, tài năng nghệ thuật không được công nhận bị coi là phung phí thời gian, kém tự tin luôn cảm thấy mình không xứng đáng. Những kỷ niệm đau thương, sinh nhật lần thứ 10. Không ai đến dự vì trùng với giải thưởng của anh trai. Buổi biểu diễn piano cha mẹ rời đi giữa chừng vì Alexandra chơi sai nốt. Bảng điểm không hoàn hảo và sự thất vọng hiện rõ trên khuôn mặt cha mẹ. So sánh không ngừng với Michael và các bạn cùng trang lứa. Biệt danh Family Loser xuất hiện. Một buổi họp mặt gia đình khi Alexandra 16 tuổi. Bình luận châm biếm của cha về kế thừa cuộc trong gia đình. Mẹ và anh trai cưới theo không biết sự tổn thương sâu sắc, biệt danh trở thành câu đùa thường xuyên trong gia đình. 2. Tuổi thiếu niên đầy khủng hoảng, cảm giác bị cô lập không thuộc về gia đình, nỗ lực hòa nhập nhưng luôn thất bại, sức khỏe tinh thần xuống dốc lo âu trầm cảm, tìm sự an ủi trong nghệ thuật nhưng vẫn bị chỉ trích. 3. Điểm tới hạn. Ngày tốt nghiệp trung học không được khen ngợi, dù cố gắng hết sức. Anh trai được tôn vinh với học bổng toàn phần. Khoảnh khắc quyết định phải thay đổi cuộc đời, khi nghe lồng cuộc trò chuyện giữa cha mẹ về tương lai mờ mịt của mình. Quyết tâm rời khỏi Boston, cắt đứt liên hệ sau khi bị từ chối hỗ trợ tài chính để theo đuổi nghệ thuật. 1. Những ngày đầu ở New York, khó khăn tài chính làm nhiều công việc để tự nuôi sống bản thân. Căn hộ nhỏ chia sẻ với 2 người bạn cùng phòng. Nỗi cô đơn và nghi ngờ bản thân. Gửi thư về nhà không được hồi đáp, cảm giác bị bỏ rơi. Gặp gỡ người cố vấn. Sofia Rodriguez, chủ phòng trưng bày nghệ thuật nhỏ thấy tiềm năng trong các tác phẩm của Alexandra. Khuyến khích theo đuổi sở thích và phát triển kỹ năng. Dạy Alexandra về kinh doanh và nghệ thuật số digital art, trở thành hình mẫu và gia đình thay thế bà. Khám phá bản thân, chẩn đoán chính thức về chứng khó đọc dyslexia, học cách vượt qua khó khăn với sự hỗ trợ đúng đắn, phát triển phong cách nghệ thuật độc đáo kết hợp truyền thống và kỹ thuật số, tìm thấy niềm tin vào khả năng của bản thân. 1. Bước đột phá đầu tiên, triển lãm nhỏ đầu tiên thu hút sự chú ý, bài báo tích cực trên tạp chí nghệ thuật địa phương, đơn đặt hàng từ một khách hàng doanh nghiệp lớn. Niềm vui khi tự kiếm sống bằng đam mê. 2. Mở rộng thương hiệu, xây dựng công ty thiết kế, Redefine Studio, tiếp cận với các khách hàng lớn, phát triển đội ngũ nhân viên tài năng, triết lý kinh doanh thấu hiểu và bao dung. 3. Thành công rực rỡ, danh tiếng quốc tế với các dự án lớn, tạp chí Fortune đưa tin về nữ doanh nhân nghệ thuật đột phá, thành tựu tài chính vượt xa mong đợi, cuộc sống cân bằng với bạn trai James và nhóm bạn thân hỗ trợ. 1. Lý do quay trở lại. Lá thư từ người hàng xóm cứ báo tin về sức khỏe của cha, cảm xúc lẫn lộn giận dữ, lo lắng, tò mò. Quyết định quay về đối mặt với quá khứ, chuẩn bị tinh thần và tìm kiếm lời khuyên từ bạn bè. Buổi gặp mặt tại nhà hàng sang trọng, sắp xếp địa điểm. Alexandra là chủ nhân cuộc gặp, phản ứng của gia đình khi thấy Alexandra thành công. Cha mẹ cố tỏ ra thân thiện nhưng rõ ràng bối rối. Michael không thoải mái khi không còn là tâm điểm. 3. Sự thật phơi bày, thành công nghề nghiệp của Alexandra vượt xa mong đợi. Michael thất bại trong sự nghiệp dù từng là ngôi sao. Cha đã về hưu sớm vì vấn đề sức khỏe. Mẹ thừa nhận đã theo dõi sự nghiệp của Alexandra qua mạng xã hội. 1. Cuộc trò chuyện thẳng thắn. Alexandra nói lên sự thật về những tổn thương trong quá khứ, chia sẻ về chẩn đoán dyslexia và làm thế nào điều đó ảnh hưởng đến tuổi thơ. Nói về biệt danh kế thừa cuộc và tác động của nó, không tìm kiếm lời xin lỗi mà là sự thừa nhận. 2. Phản ứng của gia đình, phủ nhận ban đầu và biện minh. dần dần nhận ra sai lầm trong cách nuôi dạy con. Michael thừa nhận gánh nặng của việc luôn phải là đứa con hoàn hảo. Cảm xúc dâng trào khi những bức tường phòng thủ sụp đổ ba. Khám phá về Michael, sự nghiệp không như mong đợi dù có khởi đầu xuất sắc, áp lực phải thành công đã khiến anh kiệt sức, hôn nhân tan vỡ vấn đề rượu chè, ganh tị với sự tự do và thành công của Alexandra. Bước đầu hàn gắn, không phải tất cả đều có thể sửa chữa ngay lập tức, lắng nghe và thấu hiểu lẫn nhau. Cha mẹ thừa nhận đã áp đặt kỳ vọng không thực tế lên cả hai con, cùng nhau thăm nhà cũ và ôn lại kỷ niệm từ góc nhìn mới. Hỗ trợ Michael, Alexandra giúp anh trai tìm lại đam mê thực sự. Mỗi Michael tham gia dự án mới của công ty, dạy anh cách sống cân bằng hơn, xây dựng lại mối quan hệ anh em ba, định nghĩa lại thành công, gia đình học cách tôn trọng sự khác biệt, cha mẹ thừa nhận sai lầm và học hỏi từ con cái. Alexandra chia sẻ triết lý sống thành công không chỉ độ bằng thành tích, xây dựng mối quan hệ gia đình mới dựa trên sự tôn trọng và chấp nhận. 4. Kết luận và bài học, nhìn lại hành trình từ kế thừa cuộc đến người thành công, giá trị của việc tự tin vào con đường riêng, thấu hiểu rằng mọi người có định nghĩa riêng về thành công. Câu kết mở, đôi khi người mà họ gọi là kế thua cuộc chỉ đơn giản là người không chơi cùng một trò chơi. Bạn có bao giờ phải rời bỏ kỳ vọng của người khác để tìm thấy con đường của riêng mình không? Hãy chia sẻ câu chuyện của bạn trong phần bình luận, nhấn like và subscribe nếu bạn muốn nghe thêm những hành trình vượt qua nghịch cảnh như thế này. Cảm ơn đã đồng hành cùng tôi ngày hôm nay. Now I'll write the complete Tinkogan word story based on this outline. My name is Alexandra and I'm 32 years old. The restaurant maitre d' guided me to the table where they were waiting. I smoothed my designer dress, feeling my heart pound against my chest. 3 familiar faces looked up as I approached my father, mother, and brother, people I'd once desperately tried to please. Their expressions shifted from polite expectation to stunned disbelief. The family loser had returned, but not as the failure they remembered. That nickname, Family Loser, still echoed in my mind after all these years, but it no longer defined me. I watched their smiles fade as they realized how much ED changed. Before I tell you how I went from being the family loser to the woman standing before them that day, let me know where you're watching from and hit subscribe if you've ever been underestimated by the very people who should have believed in you the most. Growing up in the Wilson family meant living in the shadow of perfection. We were what neighbors in our Boston suburb called the ideal American family. Our 2-story colonial home, with its perfectly manicured lawn, stood as a testament to my parents' success and status in the community. My father, William Wilson, was a tenured professor of economics at a prestigious university. With his wire-rimmed glasses and tweed jackets, he embodied intellectual authority. People listened when he spoke, and he expected nothing less from his family. He ran our home like one of his lectures, precise, structured, and with clear expectations of excellence. My mother, Elizabeth Wilson, balanced her successful career as a pediatric surgeon with maintaining our picture-perfect household. She managed to attend hospital galas in stunning gowns after performing life-saving surgeries, all while ensuring dinner was on the table by 6. Her perfectly highlighted hair never seemed out of place, and she moved through life with an efficiency that made other mothers in our neighborhood look disorganized by comparison. Then there was my older brother, Michael, 3 years my senior and seemingly born to fulfill every parental dream. Michael was the golden child of our family. Captain of the debate team, straight A student, and track star. He collected accolades like other teenagers collected video games. His room was a shrine to achievement, with trophies lining every surface and certificates papering the walls. And then there was me, Alexandra Wilson, the unexpected variable in this equation of excellence. From an early age, it was clear I was different. While Michael attacked his homework with laser focus, I found myself distracted by the patterns of sunlight through the blinds or the story forming in my imagination. My report cards were a source of constant disappointment, filled with comments like, "Alexandra has potential but lacks focus," and "needs to apply herself more consistently." What no one realized, not my teachers, and certainly not my parents, was that the letters on the page seemed to swim and rearrange themselves before my eyes. Reading was an exhausting battle, one I fought in silent shame, as everyone around me seemed to absorb information effortlessly. Instead of academics, I found solace in art. My sketchbooks became my refuge, filled with drawings and designs that expressed what I couldn't put into words. But in the Wilson household, art wasn't considered a worthwhile pursuit. "Alexandra, why do you waste so much time doodling?" my mother would ask, glancing disapprovingly at my sketchbook. "You should be studying for your math test." "Art is a hobby, not a career," my father would often declare during dinner discussions about future plans. "Unless you're Picasso, and you're not, you need something practical to fall back on." Even these dismissals would have been bearable if they hadn't been accompanied by constant comparisons to Michael. "Why can't you be more like your brother?" became the soundtrack of my childhood, playing on repeat through elementary and middle school. Michael never struggled with fractions. Michael was reading at a college level by your age. Michael knows exactly what he wants to do with his life. The milestones of my childhood were marked by disappointment, both my own and my family's. On my 10th birthday, I sat alone at the party my mother had reluctantly organized at the local pizza place. Most of the guests had chosen to attend Michael's regional track meet instead, including my parents. They arrived just as the party was ending, faces flushed with pride over Michael's first-place medal. "We're sorry we're late, sweetie," my mother said, though her eyes were still bright with her firstborn success. "But you should have seen your brother. He broke the school record." I nodded, forcing a smile, as I helped clean up the barely touched birthday cake. When I was 12, I participated in a piano recital after months of practice. Unlike Michael, who excelled at everything he touched, I had to work twice as hard for half the result. But I'd practiced my piece Mozart's Sonata in C until my fingers ached. I thought finally this would be something my parents could be proud of. I spotted them in the audience, my father checking his watch every few minutes. Midway through my performance, I hit a wrong note, then another, as my anxiety mounted. Before I'd finished, I saw my parents quietly stand and exit the auditorium, leaving me alone on stage fighting back tears as I struggled to complete the piece. Later, my father's only comment was, "You need to practice more if you're going to perform in public, Alexandra." That was embarrassing. But perhaps the most vivid memory was receiving my first high school report card. Despite spending hours studying, often late into the night, I had managed only B's and C's. I handed the card to my father at dinner, watching his face darken as he scanned the grades. "This is what happens when you spend all your time drawing instead of studying," he said, sliding the card to my mother, who sighed heavily. Michael, of course, had brought home straight A's again. That night, I heard my parents through the heating vent that connected our rooms. "I don't know what to do with her," my mother said. "We've given her every advantage." "She's just not applying herself," my father replied. Not everyone has Michael's gifts, but she could at least try harder. I buried my face in my pillow, feeling like an alien in my own home. What was wrong with me? Why couldn't I be the daughter they wanted? These questions plagued me as I drifted into a restless sleep. My sketchbook clutched to my chest like a shield. The term family loser wasn't just a passing comment. It became my identity within our household, a label that would follow me for years to come. I was 16 when I first heard it spoken aloud, though I'd felt its weight long before that. It happened during a holiday gathering at our home. The house was filled with colleagues from my father's university and fellow doctors from my mother's hospital. Michael, home from his first semester at Harvard, was holding court in the living room, regaling guests with stories of his academic triumphs and campus adventures. I had been assigned to kitchen duty as usual, refilling appetizer trays and washing dishes. When I entered the dining room with a fresh platter of hors d'oeuvres, I overheard my father speaking to one of his colleagues. "That's the problem with having such an exceptional firstborn," he was saying, swirling his scotch. "The second one can't help but pale in comparison." He chuckled, gesturing toward me with his glass. "Every family has its star and its, well, let's call it what it is. It's loser." His colleague laughed uncomfortably, while my mother, instead of defending me, merely smiled tightly and changed the subject. I stood frozen, the platter trembling slightly in my hands as I processed what I'd just heard. My own father had just called me the family loser to a room full of guests. Michael, who had overheard as well, caught my eye from across the room. For a moment I thought I saw sympathy in his gaze, but then someone asked him another question, and he turned away back to his adoring audience. That night, I cried silently into my pillow, a ritual I'd perfected over the years. But something had changed. The hurt had crystallized into something harder, more defined, a seed of anger and determination that would eventually fuel my escape. The label stuck. What began as a callous joke became a recurring theme. If I missed a question at dinner, there goes our family loser again. If I couldn't find my keys, classic Alexandra move. The term was always delivered with a laugh as though it was all in good fun, but each time it cut deeper than anyone realized. My teenage years became a blur of anxiety and self-doubt. I withdrew further into myself, speaking less at family gatherings, knowing anything I said could become fodder for the next Alexandra moment. My room became my sanctuary, walls covered in artwork that no one else appreciated. School was no better. While I managed to maintain passing grades through sheer determination, each class was a battlefield. The words in textbooks refused to stay still, and information that seemed obvious to others required triple the effort for me to grasp. Group projects were exercises in humiliation, as classmates rolled their eyes at my slower pace. I began experiencing panic attacks before tests, hiding in bathroom stalls, as I tried to control my breathing, knowing another poor grade would only confirm what everyone already thought, that I was the disappointment, the family loser. I found small escapes where I could. Ms. Perez, my high school art teacher, was the first adult who ever made me feel truly seen. In her classroom, surrounded by paints and clay and endless possibilities, I found moments of peace. She praised my use of color, the emotion conveyed in my brushstrokes, the unique perspective in my compositions. "You have a gift, Alexandra," she told me one afternoon as I worked on a watercolor long after class had ended. "Your art speaks when words fail." And for a moment, I allowed myself to imagine a future where this gift might matter, where I might matter. But at home, reality quickly reasserted itself. When Ms. Perez suggested I apply to art schools, I tentatively raised the idea at dinner. The response was immediate and crushing. "Art school." My father nearly choked on his food. "That's not a real education, Alexandra. It's where people go when they can't get into real colleges." "Be realistic, honey." My mother added, her tone gentler, but no less dismissive. "You need a practical degree, something that will lead to a job." Michael, home for the weekend, stayed silent, staring at his plate. I graduated high school with little fanfare. While my grades had improved somewhat, they were nowhere near Michael's stellar record. The graduation ceremony itself became yet another showcase for the disparity between us. Michael had graduated 3 years earlier as valedictorian, giving a speech that had moved my mother to tears of pride. My name was simply one among hundreds, called with only polite applause from my parents, who had taken the minimum time off work to attend. At the small celebration afterward, family friends repeatedly asked about my plans, then quickly turned to more interesting topics when I mumbled something about community college. Meanwhile, Michael, who had just been accepted to Harvard Law School after completing his undergraduate degree with highest honors, received endless congratulations. The final breaking point came that evening. While helping my mother clear the dishes, I overheard my parents talking in low voices in the study. "At least she's going to college," my mother was saying, "even if it's just community college." "For what, Elizabeth?" my father responded. "She has no direction, no ambition. I don't see a real future for her. Michael was driven from day one." "Well, not everyone can be Michael," my mother sighed. "Clearly," my father said, and I could picture the exact expression on his face, the mixture of disappointment and resignation I'd seen countless times. That night, I made my decision. I had saved almost $3,000 from working part-time at a local cafe throughout high school, money I'd been putting aside for textbooks. Instead, it would become my escape fund. 2 weeks later, I approached my parents with a detailed plan. I'd been accepted to a small design school in New York City that had offered a partial scholarship. I presented the financials showing how I could work part-time to cover living expenses if they would help with the remaining tuition. "New York?" My mother looked alarmed. "That's so far away." My father didn't even consider the numbers. "Design isn't a viable career path, Alexandra. If you want to go to college, we'll support you in a practical field business, nursing education. Something with job prospects." "This is what I'm good at," I insisted, my voice surprisingly steady. "This is what I want. What you want isn't always what you need," my father said dismissively. The answer's still no. I looked to Michael hoping for support, but he merely shrugged, slightly unwilling to challenge our parents' decision. That evening, I wrote a letter explaining that I was leaving. I didn't ask for their blessing or their financial support anymore, just their understanding that I needed to find my own way. I left it on my perfectly made bed the next morning alongside the house key I'd carried since I was 12. With 2 suitcases containing my clothes, art supplies, and a handful of treasured possessions, I boarded a bus to New York City. I was 18 years old, terrified, and exhilarated in equal measure, with no idea if I was making the biggest mistake of my life or finally taking the first step toward finding myself. As the bus pulled away from Boston, I didn't look back. The family loser was leaving to rewrite her story. New York City in August was a shock to my system. The heat rose from the pavement in shimmering waves. The crowds moved with purpose I couldn't fathom. And the noise never stopped, not even at 3 in the morning, when I'd lie awake in my tiny rented room, wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. My $3,000 in savings evaporated with alarming speed. First month's rent security deposit and basic furnishings for my shared room in a cramped apartment in Bushwick left me with barely enough to cover my first month's expenses. The room itself was barely larger than a closet, with just enough space for a twin mattress on the floor and a small desk I'd found on the street. I shared the apartment with 2 other girls: Zoe, a dancer auditioning for Broadway shows while waiting tables, and Jenna, who worked in retail and DJ'd on weekends. They were both older than me and far more worldly, with established routines and friends. While not unkind, they had their own lives and little interest in adopting a wide-eyed teenager into their social circles. Reality set in quickly. Without my parents' financial support, I couldn't afford the design school I'd been accepted to. Instead, I found myself working 2 jobs: morning shifts at a coffee shop and evening shifts at a restaurant, just to cover rent and food. My art supplies gathered dust in the corner as exhaustion became my constant companion. The isolation was perhaps the hardest part. Back home, even as the family disappointment, I'd been surrounded by familiar faces and routines. Here I was, anonymous, just another struggling transplant in a city full of dreams and disappointments. In those first lonely months, I wrote several letters home. Not asking for money or help, pride wouldn't allow that, but reaching out, letting them know I was okay, sharing small triumphs like navigating the subway system or finding a better paying job at an upscale restaurant in Chelsea. The letters went unanswered. Whether they were read and ignored or returned unopened, I never knew. After the 4th attempt, I stopped writing. My one solace was Central Park on Sunday mornings, my only time off. I'd take my sketchbook and spend hours drawing the elderly couples walking hand in hand, children flying kites, the changing seasonal landscape. It was free therapy, a way to reconnect with the part of myself that had brought me to New York in the first place. It was during one of these Sunday sessions, about 4 months after my arrival in the city, that my life changed direction again. I was working on a detailed sketch of the Bethesda fountain when a voice spoke from behind me. "You have a remarkable eye for architectural detail." I turned to find a woman in her 50s watching me work. With her silver-streaked black hair and vibrant red lipstick, she stood out among the joggers and tourists. "Thank you," I replied instinctively, starting to apologize or minimize my work as I'd been conditioned to do. The woman sat beside me without waiting for an invitation. "I'm Sophia Rodriguez. I own a small gallery in Chelsea. Do you have more work like this?" That chance encounter was the first domino in a series that would reshape my life. Sophia wasn't just being kind. She genuinely saw something in my work that interested her. She gave me her card and invited me to bring my portfolio to her gallery. I spent the next week frantically compiling my best pieces, battling the voice in my head that sounded suspiciously like my father's. "She's just being nice. Your work isn't good enough. You'll embarrass yourself." But desperation and a tiny flicker of hope drove me to her gallery the following Sunday. Sophia spent 2 hours reviewing my portfolio, asking questions about my techniques and inspirations. She didn't offer empty praise. Her critiques were specific and constructive, her enthusiasm genuine when something impressed her. "You have raw talent," she told me finally. "Unrefined, but genuine. and your digital compositions show a modern sensibility that could be commercially viable. What Sophia offered wasn't immediate fame or fortune, but something far more valuable: mentorship. She needed help managing her gallery's social media and website tasks I could do in the evenings after my restaurant job. In exchange, she would teach me about the business side of art and introduce me to her network in the design world. Under Sophia's guidance, I began to flourish. She recommended books that explained design principles in visual terms that my brain could process easily. She introduced me to digital design tools that transform my creative process. Most importantly, she believed in me not conditionally, not compared to anyone else, but for exactly who I was. 6 months into our working relationship, Sophia noticed me struggling with a text-heavy project. "The words keep moving," I admitted, frustrated and embarrassed. "They've always done that. I thought I was just stupid." Sophia's expression softened. "Alexandra, have you ever been tested for dyslexia?" That question led to a formal evaluation and eventually a diagnosis that explained so much of my academic struggles. Far from stupid, my brain simply processed information differently. With proper accommodations and techniques, reading became less of a battle. The diagnosis was both vindicating and heartbreaking. How different might my childhood have been if someone had recognized this earlier? How much unnecessary shame and self-doubt could have been avoided? Learning about dyslexia led me to explore other areas where I'd internalized false narratives about myself. With Sophia's encouragement, I started therapy, unpacking years of emotional baggage. I began to understand that my worth wasn't tied to academic achievement or my family's approval. While managing Sophia's social media, I developed skills in digital marketing and web design. I took night classes at a community college this time with proper accommodations for my learning style. I discovered I wasn't bad at learning, I just needed different approaches. My apartment situation improved as well. After a year, I moved into a better place with a roommate who became a close friend, Rachel, a writer who understood creative struggles and late-night inspiration. By my second year in New York, I had transitioned from survival mode to actually building a life. I still thought of my family, wondering if Michael had followed the prescribed path to law firm success, if my parents ever regretted their ultimatum. But those thoughts came less frequently, as I filled my life with new connections and possibilities. One particularly significant moment came when Sophia featured some of my mixed media pieces in a group show at her gallery. Standing in that space, seeing my work professionally displayed, I felt a surge of validation I'd never experienced before. "You should invite your family," Sophia suggested as we arranged the exhibition. I shook my head. "They wouldn't come." "You might be surprised," she said. "People can change." But I wasn't ready to test that theory. The wound was still too raw, the fear of rejection too real. Instead, I invited the family I had created for myself: Rachel, my coworkers' friends from classes, and Sophia, who had become something between a mentor and mother figure. The night of the exhibition, as I watched strangers engage with my art, discussing the emotion and technique behind each piece, something shifted within me. For the first time, I truly believed that I had made the right choice in leaving Boston. The family loser had found her winning path. It just wasn't the one that had been laid out for her. While most success stories involve a single breakthrough moment, mine was more of a gradual ascent, built on countless small victories and persistent effort. Each step forward gave me the confidence to reach further, dream bigger, and silence the doubts that had been instilled in me since childhood. 3 years after arriving in New York, I had built enough of a client base through Sophia's connections that I could leave my restaurant job. I specialized in branding for small businesses, combining traditional artistic skills with digital design. My apartment wall featured a growing collection of thank you notes from clients who'd seen their businesses transform through my visual storytelling. "You have a gift for capturing the essence of a business," one bakery owner wrote after I redesigned their logo and packaging. "Our sales have doubled since the rebrand." Comments like these were the antithesis of what I'd heard growing up: specific praise for measurable contributions, not vague disappointment for failing to meet arbitrary standards. As my confidence grew, so did my ambition. I began taking on larger projects, collaborating with web developers and copywriters to create comprehensive brand identities. My natural ability to think visually, once considered a liability in academic settings, became my greatest asset in the design world. The defining moment came when a tech startup founder, impressed with work I'd done for a friend of his, approached me to design their brand identity for their launch. The project fee was more than I'd earned in the previous 6 months combined. "This is too big for me to handle alone," I told Sophia over coffee, panic rising despite my excitement. "Then don't handle it alone," she replied simply. "Build a team." That advice led to the formation of Redefine Studio, my own design agency. Starting with a network of freelancers I trusted, I positioned the company as a boutique firm specializing in authentic brand storytelling for emerging businesses. Our first official office was a converted industrial space in Brooklyn, with exposed brick walls I decorated with oversized prints of our best work. The conference room table was made from reclaimed wood, and plants filled every corner, creating an environment that reflected our organic, authentic approach to design. I hired my first full-time employee, a talented graphic designer named Jamie, who had graduated from the very design school I'd once hoped to attend. There was something beautifully circular about being able to provide an opportunity to someone else pursuing creative dreams. As the company grew, I developed a leadership philosophy diametrically opposed to what I'd experienced growing up. Rather than pointing out shortcomings, I focused on identifying and nurturing each team member's unique strengths. Instead of demanding perfection, I encouraged experimentation and viewed mistakes as valuable learning opportunities. The difference between good design and great design is the willingness to try something that might not work, became one of our studio mantras. This approach attracted not only clients, but also talented creatives who had often felt stifled in more traditional agencies. Our team expanded to include designers, developers, project managers, and marketing specialists, a diverse group united by a shared commitment to authentic communication and mutual respect. By my 5th year in New York, Redefined Studio had become known for transforming underdog brands into market standouts. We won industry awards, were featured in design publications, and had a waiting list of clients eager to work with us. Financial success followed. I moved from my shared apartment to a small but stylish loft in Chelsea, walking distance from our studio. I could afford quality art supplies again, and my Sundays in Central Park now involved a high-end sketchbook and professional-grade pencils, small luxuries that felt significant given where I'd started. My personal life flourished alongside my career. I met James, a children's book illustrator, at a design conference. Unlike my family, he understood and valued the creative mind. Our relationship developed slowly and thoughtfully, built on mutual respect and genuine interest in each other's work. With James came an extended network of friends, other creatives, entrepreneurs, and interesting people who accepted me completely. Weekend gatherings at various apartments across the city became a regular feature of life, lively discussions about art, politics, and ideas that stretched late into the night. The pinnacle of this phase of my career came when Fortune magazine included me in their 40 Under 40 feature, highlighting innovative entrepreneurs. The article, titled "Redefining Success: How Alexandra Wilson Built a Design Empire from Scratch," detailed my journey from struggling artist to successful agency founder. The irony wasn't lost on me when the writer asked about my background and influences. I gave a carefully edited version mentioning growing up in Boston and finding my true path in New York. I didn't mention being called the family loser or the years of feeling like I was failing at being a Wilson. Some wounds, even healing ones, remain private. What I didn't realize until later was that the Fortune article would eventually find its way to Boston, to a household where my name had likely not been spoken in years. The family that had given up on me would discover that I hadn't given up on myself. The email arrived on an ordinary Tuesday morning, buried between client messages and team updates. The sender's name made my heart skip a beat: Martha Reynolds, our former next-door neighbor in Boston. "Dear Alexandra," it began, "I hope this message finds you well. I've been following your success from afar and couldn't be prouder of what you've accomplished. I'm reaching out because your father has been experiencing some health problems recently. Nothing immediately life-threatening, but concerning enough that I thought you should know. Your mother doesn't know I'm contacting you, but I felt you deserve to be informed. Whatever differences you've had, you're still family." I stared at the screen, a storm of emotions surging through me. After 7 years of silence, this unexpected connection to my past left me disoriented. I hadn't allowed myself to think deeply about my family in a long time, building walls around those memories to protect myself from their sting. During my lunch break, I escaped to a small park near our office, needing space to process. Should I respond? Did I owe them anything after they'd so easily let me disappear from their lives? And yet, beneath the anger and hurt, a sliver of concern for my father emerged. That evening, I shared the email with James over dinner in our apartment. "What do you want to do?" he asked after reading it, his voice gentle and free of judgment. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to ignore it. They made their choice years ago. And the other part," I sighed, setting down my fork. "The other part wonders if this is an opportunity to finally close that chapter on my terms. I'm not the same scared teenager who left. I've built something real here." James reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you. But remember, you don't owe them your success story." Over the next few days, I discussed the situation with my therapist and with Sophia, who had become a trusted advisor in all aspects of my life. "Closure comes in many forms," my therapist reminded me. "Sometimes it's a conversation. Sometimes it's simply making peace with the past without direct confrontation." Sophia was more direct. "You're strong enough to face them now, Alexandra. You've proven everything you needed to prove to yourself, which is what matters. Anything else would be for their benefit, not yours." After a week of deliberation, I made my decision. I would return to Boston, not seeking reconciliation or approval, but to show them, and perhaps myself, that I had transcended their limited vision of who I could be. The arrangements came together quickly. I booked a suite at the Four Seasons Boston, a deliberate choice, as it was where my parents had always hosted important visitors they wanted to impress. I scheduled a business trip to coincide with the visit, arranging meetings with potential Boston-based clients to justify the travel to my team. Rather than calling directly, I sent a formal email to my father's university address, which I found still active on their website. "I've been informed about your health issues and will be in Boston next weekend on business. If you, Mother, and Michael would like to meet, I've made a reservation at Harvest in Cambridge for Saturday evening at 7 euro. Please confirm if this works for your schedule." The response came within hours from my mother, not my father. Her message was brief, but revealed more than perhaps she intended. "Alexandra, we were surprised, but pleased to hear from you. Your father's condition is stable high blood pressure and some heart concerns that are being monitored. We would be happy to see you. The reservation time works for all of us. Looking forward to it." No apology, no questions about my life, not even a mention of the years of silence. Just a polite acceptance, as if we'd spoken last week rather than 7 years ago. It was exactly what I should have expected. The week leading up to the trip was a blur of preparations, both practical and emotional. I selected my outfit with strategic precision, a tailored black jumpsuit from an emerging designer we'd worked with, paired with the kind of subtle, expensive jewelry my mother had always admired. I prepared talking points about my company and rehearsed calm responses to potential provocations. James offered to accompany me, but I declined. This was a battle, and I recognized it as such that I needed to face alone. Landing in Boston felt surreal. The city was at once familiar and foreign, like revisiting the setting of a half-forgotten dream. I spent Friday in client meetings drawing confidence from the respectful way potential clients responded to my portfolio and ideas. Saturday arrived with a mixture of dread and determination. I spent the morning walking through my old neighborhood, past our former house, where a new family now lived, past my high school, with its intimidating brick facade. These places that had once seemed so defining, so permanent in my life, now felt small and oddly insignificant. By evening, I was ready. I arrived at Harvest 15 minutes early, selecting a quiet corner table where I could watch the door. I ordered a glass of wine to steady my nerves and waited. They arrived exactly on time, punctuality being one of my father's non-negotiable values. I watched them enter, speak to the host, and scan the restaurant. For a moment before they spotted me, I could observe them unnoticed. My father had aged visibly. His once dark hair was now completely gray, and he moved more carefully than I remembered. My mother remained elegant, but seemed smaller, somehow less intimidating than in my memories. And Michael, I almost didn't recognize him. The golden boy had lost his shine. He'd gained weight, his hairline was receding, and he carried himself with none of the confident swagger I remembered. Then our eyes met, and I stood to greet them. The shock on their faces was unmistakable, as they took in the confident, successful woman before them, so different from the insecure girl they'd dismissed. Alexandra. My mother recovered first, moving forward with arms outstretched for an awkward embrace. You look wonderful. My father offered a stiff handshake. It's good to see you. Michael hung back slightly, offering a nod and a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. As we settled at the table, an uncomfortable silence descended. Years of unspoken words hung in the air between us. I had imagined this moment countless times, but now that it was here, I felt strangely calm. Thank you for coming. I began taking control of the conversation. It's been a long time. Too long, my mother quickly agreed. We've missed you. I raised an eyebrow slightly at that, but chose not to challenge it directly. I understand you've been having health issues, Dad. He waved a hand dismissively. Minor concerns, blood pressure, some arrhythmia. Nothing that can't be managed with medication. I'm glad to hear it's being addressed, I replied neutrally. Another awkward silence broken when the waiter arrived to take our orders. My parents' eyes widened slightly as I ordered confidently in the kind of upscale restaurant that had once intimidated me, chatting knowledgeably with the sommelier about wine pairings. As the waiter departed, my mother leaned forward. So, Alexandra Martha mentioned you're doing quite well for yourself in New York, some kind of design work. The dismissive phrasing, some kind of design work, would have once cut deep. Now, it simply confirmed how little they knew about my life. I own Redefine Studio, I replied evenly. We're a branding and design agency with clients across the country. We have a team of 15 full-time employees and were featured in Fortune last year. My father's expression shifted from polite interest to genuine surprise. Fortune magazine? That's unexpected. Why? I asked, holding his gaze. Because art isn't a viable career path. The reference to his words from years ago wasn't lost on him. He had the grace to look somewhat abashed. Well, the success rate in creative fields is notoriously low, he said, falling back on statistics as he always had. But clearly you've beaten the odds. Michael, who had remained mostly silent, finally spoke. I saw the article, he admitted. A colleague showed it to me. It was impressive. Something in his tone caught my attention, a mixture of reluctant admiration and something else, resentment, envy. I couldn't quite place it. And what about you, Michael? I asked, turning my attention to my once perfect brother. Still practicing law. A shadow crossed his face. Actually, no. I left the firm about 2 years ago. I'm working in-house for an insurance company now. Less pressure. My mother jumped in quickly. Michael decided corporate law wasn't the right fit. He's much happier with a better work-life balance. The protective response was achingly familiar, the family closing ranks to explain away anything that didn't fit the narrative of success they'd constructed. I wondered if they'd ever offered similar explanations for my absence at family gatherings. As our appetizers arrived, the conversation shifted to safer topics. Changes in the neighborhood, mutual acquaintances, Boston's perpetual construction projects. We danced around the elephant in the room until the main course arrived. So, my father said, finally setting down his fork, are you going to tell us why you left the way you did? No phone calls, no responses to our messages. I took a sip of wine, gathering my thoughts. What messages, Dad? I wrote several letters during my first year in New York. None were answered. My mother looked genuinely confused. We never received any letters. We tried calling your cell phone for months. I changed my number, I admitted. I needed a fresh start. You disappeared, my father said, an edge creeping into his voice. Do you have any idea what that did to your mother? The attempt to place the blame on me was so predictable that I almost laughed. Some things hadn't changed at all. I left a letter explaining why I was leaving, I replied calmly. I made a choice to pursue the education and career you refused to support. It was the right decision for me, difficult as it was. We were trying to protect you from disappointment, my mother interjected. The odds of success in art. Were you protecting Michael when you supported his choice to pursue law? I countered. Or was it only my choices that needed scrutiny? Michael shifted uncomfortably in his seat. That was different, my father began. Yes, it was. I agreed. Because you believed in him and not in me. Because he was the star, and I was the family loser. The table went silent. The phrase hung in the air between us, finally spoken aloud in their presence. We never called you that, my mother said weakly. Dad did. At the faculty holiday party when I was 16. I heard him. You both laughed. I kept my voice steady, stating facts rather than accusations. But that's not really the point. The point is that's how I was made to feel every day in countless ways. My father's face had paled slightly. That was a thoughtless joke, Alexandra. I never meant— It doesn't matter what you meant, I said. It matters what you did, what you all did. I glanced at Michael, who was staring intently at his plate. You created an environment where I believed I was fundamentally deficient because I wasn't like Michael, where my interests and talents were dismissed as worthless. I took a breath, centering myself. Do you know I have dyslexia? I was diagnosed in my 20s after struggling my entire childhood with reading and processing information. Did you ever consider that there might be a reason I couldn't meet your academic expectations? The shock on my parents' faces would have been satisfying if it hadn't been so painful. All those years of struggle, of feeling stupid and inadequate, might have been different with proper support and understanding. We didn't know, my mother whispered. You didn't look, I corrected her. You saw what you expected to see, a disappointing second child who wasn't trying hard enough. The conversation paused as our plates were cleared. When we were alone again, my father spoke with unusual hesitation. You clearly have built a successful life, Alexandra. Perhaps we were wrong about some things. It was as close to an apology as I'd ever heard from him, and for a moment I felt the ghost of the validation I'd once desperately craved. But I no longer needed it. I didn't come here for vindication, I said honestly. I came to close a chapter, to see you all again as the person I am now, not the person you thought I was or would never be. Michael, who had remained unusually quiet throughout dinner, suddenly stood. Excuse me, he muttered, heading toward the restrooms. My mother watched him go with concern. He's been having a difficult time lately, she said, lowering her voice. The divorce hit him hard. Divorce? I hadn't known he was even married. He and Stephanie separated last year, my father explained. It's been challenging. The golden child had faltered. In another time, this might have given me some perverse satisfaction. Now I felt only sadness for the brother I barely knew anymore. When Michael returned, his eyes were slightly reddened. The perfect facade had cracked completely. As dessert was served, a strange shift occurred in our dynamic. The carefully constructed narrative of the Wilson family, brilliant father, accomplished mother, golden son, disappointing daughter, had unraveled. In its place was something messy, but more honest. 4 imperfect people with their own struggles, successes, and regrets. I followed your work, my mother admitted suddenly. On the internet, your company website, your Instagram page, the magazine features, I've seen it all. I stared at her, genuinely surprised. You never reached out. I didn't think you'd want to hear from me, she said softly. From any of us. And perhaps we didn't deserve to be part of your success after we failed to believe in it. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was an acknowledgement, the first step toward something I hadn't realized I still wanted. Not their approval, but their recognition of who I truly was. When I stepped into the hotel elevator after dinner, I felt strangely light, as if I'd set down a heavy burden I'd been carrying for years. The evening hadn't gone as I'd expected. It had been neither the triumphant vindication nor the painful confrontation I'd imagined. Instead, it had been something more complex and ultimately more healing, an honest exchange between adults, acknowledging past wounds while standing in the present. The next morning, I received a text from Michael asking if I'd meet him for coffee before my flight. Curiosity won out over caution, and I agreed to meet at a cafe near my hotel. He was waiting when I arrived, looking more casual than he had at dinner, but no less uncomfortable. After ordering, we sat across from each other at a small corner table. the awkwardness between us palpable. "I owe you an apology," he began abruptly. "More than one, actually." I waited, giving him space to continue. "I knew how they treated you," he said, staring into his coffee cup. "I saw it happening, and I did nothing. Sometimes I even participated." "We were kids, Michael." "Not always," he countered. "I was an adult when you wanted to go to design school. I could have supported you, spoken up. I didn't." The admission surprised me. I'd never considered that Michael might feel guilty about his role in our family dynamic. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. He looked up and I saw genuine pain in his eyes. "Because seeing you yesterday, successful, confident, happy, made me realize something I've been avoiding. You got it right, and I got it wrong." "What do you mean?" "You followed your passion despite everything, despite having no support." "I followed the path that was laid out for me. Harvard undergrad, Harvard law, prestigious firm." He trailed off. "I was miserable almost the entire time." As our coffee arrived, Michael shared more about his life since I'd left the punishing hours at the law firm, the pressure to make partner, the marriage that collapsed under the weight of his unhappiness, and growing dependency on alcohol to cope with stress. "The irony is that Mom and Dad still think I'm the successful one," he said with a bitter laugh. "Even with the divorce, the career change, the months of therapy, they still introduce me as Michael, our son the lawyer, as if that title somehow erases everything else." I recognized in my brother the same trap I had escaped: the need to fulfill others' expectations at the expense of his own happiness. "It's not too late to change course," I suggested gently. "You're what, 35? That's hardly ancient." "What would I even do?" he asked, and the genuine confusion in his voice reminded me of how I'd felt in those early days in New York, lost but hopeful. "What did you want to do before law school became the plan?" He thought for a moment. "I liked writing. I was good at it. Creative writing, not just legal briefs." A small smile appeared. "I used to write short stories in college before I got too busy with pre-law requirements." We talked for almost 2 hours, moving from the weight of the past to possibilities for the future. By the time we parted, something new had formed between us, not quite friendship, but a tentative bridge across the chasm of our shared history. "Would you—" Michael hesitated as we stood to leave. "Would you be open to staying in touch? Maybe visiting again sometime?" The question touched something in me I hadn't expected: a desire to know this new, more authentic version of my brother. "I'd like that," I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. Later that day, before heading to the airport, I received an email from my father. Unlike his usually terse communications, this one was lengthy and thoughtful. "Alexandra," he wrote, "last night gave me much to reflect on. I've spent my career studying economic theories and patterns, but I failed to recognize the damage my words and actions were causing within my own family. Your mother and I have talked at length since dinner. We were wrong to dismiss your talents and interests. More importantly, we were wrong to make you feel less valued, because you didn't fit the mold we had constructed." He continued, acknowledging my diagnosis, expressing regret for the opportunities missed, and ending with a request similar to Michael's for a chance to know the woman I had become on my terms. The flight back to New York gave me time to process all that had happened. I realized that while I had gone to Boston seeking closure, what I'd found instead was an opening, a possibility that the family that had once damaged me so deeply might, with time and effort, become something new and healthier. 2 weeks later, I invited Michael to New York. I showed him our studio, introduced him to my team, and watched as he engaged with a world so different from the corporate environment he knew. Over dinner with James and some friends, I saw glimpses of a person I'd never really known my brother beyond the golden child persona. "Your team clearly respects you," he observed as we walked through Chelsea after dinner. "Not fears you, respects you. That's rare in leadership." "I built the company I wished existed when I was starting out," I explained, "where differences are seen as strengths, not deficiencies." Michael nodded thoughtfully. "I've been thinking about what you said, about it not being too late to change course." And I started writing again. Nothing serious, just for myself, but it feels right. like coming home after being away too long. Over the following months, our parents visited New York as well. These meetings were sometimes awkward, occasionally painful, as old patterns tried to reassert themselves, but increasingly genuine. My father, in particular, seemed determined to understand the daughter he had failed to see clearly for so many years. When Redefined Studio won a major industry award 6 months later, I was surprised to receive congratulatory flowers from my parents and an enthusiastic email from Michael. Small gestures, but significant in what they represented recognition of my success on my own terms. During their third visit to New York, my father asked if I would consider collaborating with Michael on a project. He had started writing a children's book about a dyslexic girl who discovers her artistic talents and needed an illustrator. He values your aesthetic sense, my father explained, and your perspective on the subject matter. The project became a turning point in my relationship with Michael. Working together revealed complementary strengths, his structured narrative approach balancing my visual storytelling. The book, published the following year, received positive reviews and became a resource for families with dyslexic children. My mother, watching this collaboration unfold, finally addressed the elephant in the room during a quiet moment alone. "I always thought siblings would naturally be close," she admitted. "I never considered how our actions might create competition instead of connection. Watching you and Michael work together now, it shows me what might have been possible all along." The healing wasn't instantaneous or complete. There were still moments when old hurts resurfaced, when conversations became tense as we navigated sensitive topics. But slowly, deliberately, we were building a new kind of family relationship, one based on who we actually were, rather than who anyone thought we should be. Perhaps the most profound change was within myself. I had returned to Boston, expecting to show my family how wrong they had been about me seeking a kind of revenge through success. What I discovered instead was that true victory wasn't in proving them wrong. It was in finding happiness and purpose regardless of their opinion. The family loser had not only succeeded, she had redefined what success meant altogether. 3 years after that first reunion dinner in Boston, I found myself sitting on the terrace of my parents' new condo overlooking Boston Harbor. They had downsized after my father's retirement, choosing a place better suited to their current needs rather than maintaining the showcase home that had been more status symbol than comfort. My mother passed me a glass of wine as we watched the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. My father and James were inside, engaged in a surprisingly amicable discussion about the intersection of economics and art. Michael would be joining us later with his new girlfriend, a children's librarian, who shared his rekindled passion for storytelling. "I never imagined this," my mother said softly, gesturing to encompass not just the view, but all of us together. "After you left, I was certain we'd lost you forever." "You almost did," I acknowledged. There was no need to soften the truth anymore. We had moved beyond that kind of protective dishonesty. She nodded, accepting this reality. "I think about all the years we wasted, all the moments we missed, because we couldn't see past our own expectations." "We can't get those years back," I said. "But we're here now." My mother reached over to squeeze my hand briefly, a gesture that would have once felt foreign between us, but had become more natural with time and effort. "Your father and I were talking last week about how much we've learned from you," she said. "Not just about art or business, but about what really matters. Watching you build your life on your own terms, seeing how you lead your team with such compassion and clarity, it's made us question so many assumptions we never thought to challenge." From inside, I heard my father laugh at something James had said, a genuine, unguarded sound that would have been rare in the home I grew up in, where intellectual sparring had been the primary mode of interaction. The Wilson family had been redefined not by achievement or status or comparison, but by the harder, more rewarding work of genuine connection. The transformation hadn't been quick or easy. There had been difficult conversations, painful recognitions, and necessary boundaries. There were still moments when old patterns threatened to resurface, when I needed to step back and remind myself of how far I'd come. Michael's journey had perhaps been the most surprising. After collaborating on our book project, he had continued writing while maintaining his corporate job. Recently, he'd been offered a position teaching legal writing at a local university, a role that combined his legal background with his rediscovered passion for language. The haunted look that had shadowed his eyes at our reunion dinner had gradually faded, replaced by something more authentic and at peace. As for me, Redefined Studio continued to thrive, expanding to a second office in Chicago and building a reputation for transformative branding work. But my measure of success had evolved beyond business achievements. I found deeper satisfaction in mentoring young designers, particularly those with learning differences, who reminded me of my younger self. James and I had moved to a brownstone in Brooklyn, with a dedicated studio space where I could return to my first love, creating art for the pure joy of expression. We were discussing marriage and family conversations that felt both exciting and grounding. When Michael arrived that evening, he brought not only his girlfriend, but a preview copy of his first novel dedicated to Alexandra, who showed me it's never too late to rewrite your story. Over dinner, we talked about childhood memories, not with the glossy nostalgia that covers uncomfortable truths, but with honest reflection on both the good and difficult moments we had shared. We could acknowledge the pain of the past without being defined by it, recognize the mistakes without assigning permanent blame. My father, more reflective in retirement than I would have ever imagined possible, raised his glass in a toast. To growth, he said simply, and to the courage it takes to choose your own path. Later that night, back in our hotel room, James asked me a question that made me pause. Are you glad you reconnected with them? Even after everything, I considered carefully before answering. I didn't reconnect with them for their sake or even for mine initially, I admitted. I went back to show them what they'd missed, maybe even to prove them wrong. But what I've gained isn't vindication, it's freedom. Freedom from needing their approval, freedom from old resentments, freedom to accept the family we are now, while acknowledging the family we were then. I looked out at the Boston skyline, the city that had once felt like a prison, and now was simply a place with both painful and precious memories. The truth is, they were right about one thing: I was the family loser. But only because we were playing different games. They were measuring success by external validation achievement status. I needed to find a game where different qualities mattered: creativity, empathy, authenticity. It just took me a while to realize I didn't need to win their game. I needed to create my own. Sometimes the person they call a loser is simply playing a different game altogether. Have you ever had to walk away from others' expectations to find your true path? Share your story in the comments below. And if this journey of overcoming family expectations resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to hear more stories of transformation, and share with someone who might need to be reminded that being different doesn't mean being less. Thank you for being part of my journey today.